Hello and welcome to Six Tackles with Gus, live from the locker room here at Sydney Olympic Park. We've got it all to ourselves today and we're here to celebrate episode 1 of 2026, which happens to be the 10th year of this podcast. When Gus started, he had no idea what a podcast was, and now he's a decade into his podcasting career. We're here thanks to Tab, and I've missed our weekly rendezvous, but it is great to see you, my friend. How are you doing?
Matt Thompson, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic. How have the summer months treated you?
Yeah, good. Been very, very busy. One season sort of blends into the others for that, and we're looking forward to Vegas next week, so heading off Saturday over to Sin City.
So how many Bulldogs are making the trek to Vegas?
Plenty. Every merchandise item is sold out. As soon as we put it up online, it sells out. Tickets all sold out that we provided. Sold out a plane. Plenty of
plane?
Plenty of Bulldogs supporters going over for the game.
What are you going to get up to while you're over there?
Me, I won't be getting up to much at all. I've got a fair bit of corporate stuff to do, and of course the team's training. I mean, it's not a holiday, it's a game of football. We've got to go over there and get 2 points and start the season off on a good note. So our energy is all into that. The party going on around us with fans and sponsors and corporates and families, well, that's for them to do, but it'll be pretty much just business for the footballers.
All right, very good. So normally on our first episode of the year, we do a preview of the season. We'll have a little bit of a look at that. We'll have a look at some player movements, but there's been so much happening throughout the off-season. We need to get your
Crazy.
thoughts. It's been bizarre.
A crazy off-season.
Including maybe the biggest signing in how long? A very, very long time. A very, very long time. Payne Haas. But we should start with the Origin eligibility because it only came out yesterday. Look, there was a sense of inevitability that this was going to happen at some stage, but just as an overview of what's happened, players who represent New Zealand or England can continue to do so, but still have to meet the criteria of having lived in New South Wales or Queensland before their 13th birthday or have a father who played Origin. There's a number of players who come into calculations under the new rules, but you've been advocating something like this for quite a while, Gus. And really, the eligibility of Origin needed to catch up to the demographics of the game.
100%. I've been writing about this probably for 25 years now. I've said on a number of occasions when the State of Origin concept first came in back in 1980, and what a wonderful concept it's been for the game, rugby league was pretty much an Anglo-Saxon sport played in Brisbane and Sydney. The major competition was in Sydney. There was another competition in Brisbane, but it was pretty much played by the Anglo-Saxon Australian here in this country. Our game is anything but that today, anything but that. And our game has to move with the demographic changes in that regard. Some of the commentary around since this rule has now been changed yesterday, and thankfully it has been changed, and it's a more sensible rule now. Suddenly everyone in the media wants to go running and say, well, who now qualifies for Origin this year? That's not what it's about. It's not about who can maybe qualify this year. It's about what the future looks like. If you go and look at all the junior representative teams, all the academy programs that teams run, all the junior league teams that get picked, we are predominantly Pacific Island. Those teams are dominated by Pacific Island players. Many of them are second and third generation Australians. They still identified as Samoan, Tongan, Fiji, Maori, or whatever it is. We've got a number of New Zealand academies in New Zealand. The Warriors have got a whole country of people to pick from. Rugby is very strong across there, but there is big support for the game of rugby league in New Zealand. And the top clubs, your Brisbane Broncos, your Melbourne Storms, your Sydney Roosters, have all had academies over there in New Zealand for a number of years and recruit very heavily from that junior talent. A lot of New Zealand people move their kids across here before the age of 13 so that they qualify to play in those representative teams. And what we don't want is for kids at very, very young ages having to decide whether or not they want to represent their country or be eligible to play State of Origin football, or they're made to make a decision between Australia and their country, which they shouldn't have to do. So I've been advocating for a long time that if you qualify to play State of Origin football, then you still should qualify to play for your country of choice, your heritage, if that's what you choose to do. And I think it's a pretty simple application, which this rule now does, and thankfully that it's not so much about now and whether or not Adam Fanua-Blake can force his way into the Origin side. It's about kids growing up in our academy programs now not having to make that decision at a young age, or knowing that they can play for their country, they can respect their heritage and their name, their father's name, and go off and play for their country under their country colours, which has been wonderful for the game. I've said a number of times, the growth of our game is on the international stage, not the domestic stage. The international stage is where our game will grow. Look at the Pacific Island nations now and what they're doing in rugby league. New Zealand can get stronger with more investment across there. It's so important that we continue our association or our possibility of working with the UK Super League to make them strong across there as well. And, I keep saying rugby league's on the doorstep of greatness if we handle it properly. And I think this is an important step towards it. It doesn't change Origin for mine. Having said that, our society, our country, our demographics have changed remarkably in the last 45, 46 years. And we need to move with the times. And I think it's a great boon for all our junior rugby league players to know that they can still qualify to play State of Origin football, which is the pinnacle of the game here in this country. It's what sells rugby league to the world, but then still have the opportunity to go and play for their international choice. And Australia needs that competition. We need competition at the international level. We don't need them all playing for Australia.
It's actually an extension of the rules that exist already, because the Tier 2 nations qualify for Origin, the Tohors and the Luai.
Well, our Tier 1s and our Tier 2s are no longer Tier 2s.
Well, that's exactly right. It's a reclassification of the strength of the game.
Now that their teams have been developed here in the NRL, right, those players who play in those Tier 2 nations, which are, they're as good as Tier 1 teams now, have been educated here in the NRL. Look at the quality of the teams that are there. And kids aspire to that. They aspire to be those heroes. They aspire to play for their country of heritage.
So it is for the future. No doubt, it's a rule that's been brought in, like you say, to provide
like running off and worrying about who can qualify.
Yeah, but
now.
can I run off and think about who's going to be there this year now?
Go on.
Well, Adam Fadil-Blake's going to be there, isn't he?
I don't know. Why are you picking your team now? You're not going to start picking Origin teams now.
Because it's the first episode of the year.
Please don't start picking Origin teams on day one.
But it's exciting to think. So AJ Brimson had to make that decision ahead of the Ashes last year.
Yeah.
He's already played for Queensland, but because he decided he wanted to go back and honour his family's heritage and play for England, he was then ruled out of Origin.
Which he should have.
Now been reversed.
He should have the right to do. It doesn't affect us. It should have the right to do. Like I hear, some of the old timers and us old timers whinge a little bit, but saying, oh well, they won't be as passionate when they're playing for Queensland if they want to play for another country. I don't think that's the case at all. A lot of these really good players that come through our system, Pacific Island players, they're already playing junior rep football for New South Wales and Queensland on the way through. And I've always said, if you qualify for that, you should be able to play at the big time too. And
do you know what? If Origin is so powerful and influential, like we all know it is, then surely the players that come into that system are going to be swept up in it anyway.
Of course they are. And it's the best versus the best. It really is. And like I said, a lot of our Pacific Island players in the NRL are not coming from the islands. They're not even born in the islands. They're second, third generation Australians. They were born here, schooled here, educated here, played their junior football here, go through academy programs. But family is so important. Their national heritage is so important to them. They identify as Samoan, Tongan or Maori or whatever. They should have a right to play for that country. I always said it. When you put your hand on your heart and listen to the national anthem, there's only one that stirs you, and that's the one you play for.
Thanks again to our friends at Tab for sponsoring Six Tackles with Gus for another year. Tab's giving the punters plenty to shout about this NRL season. Download that Tab app. Tab, we are on.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.
New rules. New year, new rules.
There's some more new rules. What are you going to get me in trouble with today?
Well, there's actually a rule that's been implemented for you.
Why?
It's called the Phil Gould rule, apparently.
Nah, rubbish.
Apparently, you're not allowed to. Well, it's anti-tampering if you go rapping players on this podcast.
Oh, right.
Apparently, that's what I'm told. But the one I really want to talk about is the squad sizes. So we've now got 6 on the bench, but you can only use 4 of them. So what's it going to look like? The teams will use 3 forwards in a rotation and keep an impact player to use later in the game.
Yeah.
And then there's considerations for HIA, etc.
Yeah, this is, again, I think it's a little bit of an overreaction, but it's also the influence of coaches on the rules. I've always been against this for 35 years, since they started engaging coaches around rule changes and that. Head coaches should not be involved in rules committees in any way, shape or form. They should not be allowed there, right? They can't help but act out of self-interest. They don't act in the best interest of the game. And they're not always right either, right? So can I just take you through the history of replacement rules? Do you understand the history of replacement rules in rugby league and how our game is so much different to what it was when it first started. Back in 1908, when the game first started, right? This is a long, long time ago.
1908.
1908.
How long are we going for?
We're going to take you through the whole process,
It's
right?
130 years ago.
Yeah, I've got Midday to do some research on it. Up until 1925, right? There was a local rule in the New South Wales that you replace one bloke if he got injured during the game, right? That's what it was. Then in 1925, they decided, no, that's no good. We're not having replacements at all for injury.
Right.
So from 1925 until 1963, from 1925 till 1963, what's that, 38 years? There was no replacements allowed. If you got hurt, you went out and played on the wing, or you just didn't play, your team was short. So they didn't think they needed replacements back then.
I reckon that'd go these days.
From 1925 to 1963, you had to play the whole game.
There's blokes playing with their limbs hanging off.
In 1963, a replacement rule was revived in Sydney where any team could replace 2 injured players up to and including half-time. So you could replace them in the first half.
Not the second.
But you couldn't replace them in the second half. All right, that was just rubber the green. That's just what happened to you. If you got hurt, you either had to play on or you played short. Simple as that. They probably didn't have enough players to go around too, by the same token. In 1964, a replacement rule was used for the first time in a test match. So test match football, representative football, up until 1964, had no replacement rules whatsoever. All right. In 1970, at the meeting of the International Board in October, it was agreed that 2 replacements for injured players would be allowed at any time during a game. All right. And was introduced into the Sydney Premiership for the 1970 season. So
Injured players.
Injured players. You could replace 2 injured players during the course of the game. Now, I think in those days, if I'm right, those replacements had to have already played a full game in the lower grades. We used to have first, second and third grade in those days, which later became first grade, second grade or reserve grade and under 23s a little bit later in the 70s. But
Just walking back to history here, aren't we?
well, but I want you to understand where we've come from to get to where we are now, where we've got 19 on the bench. We're going to end up with 39 on the bench. It'll be bigger than the NFL by we're finished. I can just see where this is trending. In 1976, all right, and this is the year that I started.
I wasn't even born.
1970, well, it's my first year in first grade. Following a decision of the New South Wales Football League on the 17th of May 1976, rules relating to replacement players have been amended to provide for a replacement of 4 players in lieu of 2 in the under-23s competition, which meant that you could use 4 players, but 2 of them had to come out of the under-23s
So
competition.
not even reserve grade.
Not even reserve grade.
Right.
They could be young blokes on the way up that you wanted the blood, all right, at the back end of games.
Were you one of that was the one where you'd had half a beer and a sausage roll or something in the
So
in the spa, wasn't it?
my first ever run on, I was 18 years of age. I was playing fullback for Penrith in the under-23s. I played my under-23s game. I sat on the bench for reserve grade, and I didn't get a run in reserve grade that day. Or I might have got the last 10 minutes. I can't remember. And then I went in and took my gear off and jumped in the spa and opened a can of Tooheys and started to have a couple of sips. The goal kicker out there missed 2 kicks from in front, and all of a sudden the coach said, "Get Phil Gould and tell him to suit up and come and sit on the bench."
He's had 4 goodness.
So they've come into the spa bath and I'm sitting in the spa bath. And they said, "You've got to get your gear on. The coach wants you to sit on the bench." I said, "What for?" He said, "First grade." I said, "What?" He said, "First grade." And then he looked at the can. He said, "Have you been drinking that?" I said, "No." I'd already had half the can. So I put my gear on, went and sat on the bench. Sure enough, at half time, I went out and played fullback in first grade for the second half.
Did you kick any goal?
On half a can of beer. Yeah, I did. Kicked a goal. That was my first run on in first grade, but that's how it happened. So to be a replacement for first grade, you had to complete a full game in the reserve grade or a full game into under-23s before you could sit on the bench for first grade, yet still you could only use 2 senior players and I think 2 younger players on thing. In 1981, 4 replacements were allowed for the first time. But again, they all had to play lower grades. These weren't fresh replacements.
Right.
That didn't happen for a long time.
So that's 76.
That's 81 now.
81.
We're in 81, all right? So in 1987, they introduced the head bin, the blood bin.
Yes.
Right? The head bin was introduced. Players suffering minor head injuries were allowed to return to the field to play after 10 minutes without affecting the quota of replacements.
So it's a minor head injury in the 80s.
So we had all these blokes
now.
flopping down with head injuries. Trainer would tap them on the head and they'd take them all. And then all of a sudden there were people running off and everywhere, all right? So in 1988, they decided we'll have 2 fresh reserves, right? They still had the head bin. You could still tap out and go and come back on in 10 minutes. No HIA exam or anything. You just come back on.
What do they do in the 10 minutes for your minor head injury?
Have a drink, talk to the coach, get back out there.
Have a couple of Panadol.
Get your instructions and go back out there. There was never anything wrong with it. And I made it a little bit harder because in 1991, the interchange rule was introduced, which meant you could actually go on and off. Because before, if you got replaced, you were done. You go and have a shower, right? You couldn't come back on. In 1991, the interchange rule was introduced, allowing 4 players with unlimited interchange throughout the match, right? So they're going on and off like a conveyor belt. This rule was brought primarily in to cut down the risk of the blood-borne diseases because people were faking the head knocks and the blood disorders, all right? I think the basketballer got AIDS in America, so everyone was going to get AIDS from blood. That's what was worried about. The uproar brought about by the unlimited interchange forced a modification of the rule with a maximum of 4 players allowed and 6 interchanges during the match. Players sent to the head bin did not count as the 6 interchanges, so we had a raft of head bins and blokes being knocked out.
Do you remember Mario Fedek used to go on the field with blood capsules?
A few blokes did.
He used to chew the blood capsules after about 10 minutes and off he'd come.
Yeah, a bit of a ruse. You had the trainer come on and pinch the scar you got from last week to try and get a bit of blood out of it, and then they'd...
He's off.
Yeah, the Manly blokes were very good at that.
It's come a long way since 1908.
1996, and of course this is now in the Super League era, they decided unlimited interchange introduced into the ARL competition. So they were making 60 and 70 replacements. It was forward to have a run, they'd get him off and have a rest. You know, as soon as you had to have a line drop out and back-to-back sets, they'd throw out 3 more forwards. Every scrum, there were people running off. So they changed.
You'd have attacking players.
Well, yes. Well,
I watched the game over, I remember.
Well, that's what we're going to discuss.
Cliff Lyons, as soon as they had the ball, he'd go on, and when they didn't, he'd come off.
Come back off. Yeah, absolutely. In 2001, the limited interchange rule was reintroduced, allowing 4 replacements but a maximum of 12 interchanges, which was still a lot.
It was.
And we still had head bins in that time. In 2008, the NRL reduced the number of interchanges from 12 to 10. The international rule remained at 12. In 2006, the NRL allowed 6 players to be named. 2026, they're now going to say 6 players to be named on the interchange bench. 4 can be used with a maximum of 10 interchanges throughout a game. Is that right? Or 8? 8 interchanges throughout a game.
So it's 8 now.
I think it's 8 now.
8 now.
It's 8 now.
But there's HIA and all that sort of stuff.
There are plenty of people that flout that rule. But, so, what's it mean now to have 6 players on the bench of which you can only use 4, right? Failing a number of HIAs where players are ruled out, right? So let's say you get through your game without HIAs. You've now got 6 replacements on the bench. So you name your normal 17, you've got an 18th and a 19th player now. What change is that going to make? Firstly, I don't agree with this in any way, shape or form, right? I think one of the things about coaching and the strategy of coaching, the strategy of recruitment and development is to have players that give you coverage across the board. I think 17 players is more than enough to cover you through 80 minutes of football. I really do. We've got the greater, scrutiny around HIA now and head knocks, which does make it hard for coaches to cover all the positions because that can happen at any time to any player. And they're taken off the field for 15 minutes. So there's a frustration amongst the coaches of what sort of people do they keep on the bench and can they cover certain positions during the course of the game if someone goes down injured. Now, I think this has been mainly driven by coaches who, because of the roster or the player type that they've got, prefer to have 4 big forwards on the bench so they can rotate their forwards throughout the game, the speed of the game, the 6 again rules and the way we're speeding up the contest, the play the ball the way it is and that sort of thing. They need their 4 big forwards because they go out there and they have a sharp 10 or 15 minutes and they come off and then they interchange and they have their half-time break and they do it again and they just like to keep rotating their 4 big forwards. But if a half, a hooker or a fullback or a winger goes down or an outside back, they haven't got adequate coverage. So they've been pushing for this, that we need to have more coverage on the bench so that they can then make better decisions around their bench. Now, I think it should be more your strategy and more your the way you approach the game, that you should have to cover that in your 17 players. And you recruit and you coach players to be able to play different positions. You should be able to cover everything on the field with the 17 replacements you got. There's going to be a gamble. Do I cover a specialist halfback or hooker? Do I cover a special winger or fullback? If I do that, I've got to have forwards that can play longer minutes than some of these other forwards can, or that they ask them to do. And I think that also goes to the way the game is played, the size of the players, the power of the players, because they're not asked to play for very long minutes these days. There are a lot of stoppages. You've got bunkers, you've got HIAs, you've got reviews, you've got all sorts of things that go on during the game that slow the game down and keep players fresh.
So what's a bench going to look like?
Well, that's what it's going to look like. What you're going to have, it's going to allow them now to have the 4 big forwards for a start because they can use those. It's going,
You
to
can
allow,
only use
it's,
three
going
of
to,
them.
it's going to allow them to cover two specialist positions like outside back or hooker half type player or a ball playing type player or maybe a player who's not that strong in defence, all right, but has got great attacking skills who can come on later in the game. But think about what this means. It means that where you normally would have had 17 players and probably by about the 16th minute they've all got onto the field, you're not going to be able to put that fourth player into the action
That's right. You got
too early because once you've used it, you can't use the other two on the bench.
Yeah, so they're wasted.
Which means they're going to hold it back. Now, I got some real problems with that. All right? I think it's going to mean less football for a lot of players, particularly 17, 18 and 19. It's not just 18 and 19. 17 or sometimes 16, 17, 18, 9 are going to be getting less minutes because coaches are going to have to be more strategic about holding players back in case they get the head knock or in case they get the injury to a player where they need a specialist to go on and do that job. Or the game is such that we're 10 behind, I need to get this player out there.
That's right.
Right? We might get beat by 30, but I need him out there to try and win the game for us. Which means fellas are going to suit up on the weekend, it's part of that top 17, with no guarantee that they're going to get a game. Or at least one of them is going to be sitting there thinking, well, am I going to get on or not? And plenty of times he won't. All right? Now, there's another little thing about that. Let's say I bring a young kid in from Dubbo and he comes in from our system and he comes up and all of a sudden he's going to make his first grade debut. All right? The coach has picked him to be part of the 17 and you've seen this plenty of times, country kids or junior league kids making their debut. What happens? Their whole family, their whole neighbourhood, their whole community, they all get tickets to come out and support the player for his debut. So he sits there as player number 17 and the coach doesn't use him. What a terrible letdown. We shouldn't be in a position where that happens. If you're named in that 17, you should be on the field. You should be getting on the field. I don't believe that you sit there with all these fresh reserves and only pick 4 on the day. I think it's not good development for the players. They'll argue, well, these days we don't get the chance to throw a young fellow on late in the game when the game's over and give them a little bit of development. And I wish we had those days as well. But they should have had to have played lower grade games. Our lower grades and our top grades don't meet up in draw-wise. They all play on different days in different locations. You travel to games now. It's a big travel party to go to New Zealand or Townsville or Melbourne. I simply don't like the rule and I don't like the motivation behind it. I don't think the motivation was sufficient to make this an interchange, to make this change.
My first reaction...
I think you're more than covered with the 17.
Yesterday when it came out, I sort of thought about what you'd say about it today. So let's go to that strategic position where you've got your 4 forwards and your 2, a specialist half or whatever. What if they only use the 4 forwards for 3 games in a row and the other 2 blokes sit there on the bench as 18 and 19 and don't play for 3 weeks?
Don't play for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Which means then
how do you manage that as a club?
Well,
do you have to use the same blokes?
It happens with our 18th player now a lot.
Yeah, of course.
A lot.
Yeah.
Because particularly if, say, you're playing away from home in Brisbane or Townsville or New Zealand or Melbourne and you're going early or you're coming home late, they don't get to play their lower grade game that weekend. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
It's different if you're playing at home and they're played on a different day or maybe you play them on the same day. We even got to the point where our 18th player, we were trying to get it that he could play in the reserve grade game on the same day and then come and sit on the bench for the first grade because I believe they've got to be playing regular football. I think it creates more problems than it actually solves. But this is the whole thing about NRL head coaches influencing the rules. It's self-serving. It's not actually in the best interest of the player or the game. I think you should have to cover it with your 17. And those 17 players, if named, should be the only ones that you use. I understand what's happened around the HIA, and look, we're not going to turn that back. And a lot of the decisions they make there are around litigation and trying to protect the game going forward. And I get all that, but it should only ever be used in extreme cases. I just don't see the sense in having 6 fresh bodies on the bench to cover. If you're going to have the 6 bodies on the bench, let them use all 6. Let them play all 6. But it shouldn't be the point where someone who's named in the 17 or someone sitting on that bench perhaps to make their debut, what do you do? What do you do with a kid making his debut? Or what do you do with a kid or one of your forwards who's normally part of your rotation sitting there not knowing if he's going to play?
Yeah, it's hard.
Or he's not used until the last 10 minutes because now we can take the risk, we'll put him out there. Or, listen, mate, we're 20 behind, we don't need you today. You're a defensive player, we're going to put Joe Blow on who chip kicks and chases and does all that stuff. I think it's wrong. I think it's overkill. And I really don't like it. And I think part of the strategy of this game and the coaching of this game should be picking players, developing players and coaching players so that you cover all positions in your 17. And if you don't, well, that's just rubber the green. That's just bad luck on the day. We went so many years, 50 years in our game without any interchanges or replacements whatsoever. I'm not saying we go back to those days, and I always say it's a different planet these days, but I think we've suddenly crept up on the ridiculous with our interchanges and our replacements. I don't like it at all. Having said that, someone voted for it. Someone thinks it's a good idea.
You obviously didn't get a vote.
I'm not ever asked onto those. I actually was. Back in the Super League days, when the two competitions came together, I was part of a committee. They provided a few Super League coaches and we provided a few ARL coaches to bring the two codes back together because the rules were different. When we went off and played in different comps, the rules are different, so we had to work out what we're doing. But at every meeting, I stood up and said, we should not be doing this. This shouldn't be our job. There should be designated rules people in the rugby league who look after this. And the changing of rules should take years. It should be tried and tested in lower grades before we change any rule. Some of the other rules you're going to talk about here, about the...
Well, I wasn't going to. I was kind of going to brush it because I don't know if I can go back to 1908 for all of them.
No,
so the trainer thing. So what happens with the trainers? They're not allowed to run on whenever they want.
About that's fans whinging. That's campaigner into the fans.
No,
I never noticed trainers on the field. I mean, a bloke got hit with the ball the other day when someone was going to pass the ball or someone ran in front of the kicker.
Well, there was the bloke at the grand final in 2019 didn't help.
Yeah, well, it happens. If you're going to have all those players, we used to have 2 referees out there too. There was 1,000 people on the field. You can't, that's going to happen every now and then. That's not the trainer's fault. And fans whinging about the fans of the losing team whinging about the opposition trainer and Alfie Langer's out there too long. And
it's the Alfie rule.
Should be playing.
It's the Alfie rule.
So, I never worry about the trainer thing.
No 7-tackle sets, Gus. So an attacking team that knocks on in the in goal will no longer concede a 7-tackle set. So if you're contesting a high kick and you touch it in the process of trying to score a try, it's not a 7-tackle set.
Well, same as if you're trying to put the ball down. The history of the 7-tackle rule thing went back to when someone tactically decided they weren't going to kick the ball to Billy Slater anymore, so they used to kick it dead and give him 20 metres and 6 tackles. And it got boring for a few weeks there while it happened, so knee-jerk reaction, they decided to make this rule. I know the coach that did that because he liked the idea of 7-tackle sets. He had them in Super League and he used to love them. There should be no 7-tackle sets in our game, all right? Let alone from a 20-metre tap. You get 20 metres head start straight away. You get a free 20 metres, that's worth 2 tackles in itself. There should be no 7-tackle sets of any sort. But what they decided was to discourage this practice of kicking the ball downfield and kicking it dead deliberately and just conceding 20 metres and 6 tackles was better than kicking the ball to Billy Slater, who might run it back 50 metres, all right? That was the tactic of the day. So they decided that we won't allow you to do, if you do that, it's a 7-tackle set. That was the rule. All right, fair enough. That's what you're going to do. Except you give that rule to the referees, and what do? They made every 20-metre tap a 7-tackle set. Well, that's not what we meant. That's not what the rule was supposed to do, right? So a little grubber kicks into the in goal, or Flair's knocking the ball on as they're trying to put the ball over the line, All of a sudden, they're 20 metres. Why? Why are they 7-tackle set? Oh, well, a 20-metre tack is now a 7-tackle set.
And that has led to teams now just being happy to be tackled on the opposition goal line.
Yeah, now you marry that up with the line dropout rule where there's no consequence for not kicking the ball 10 metres or kicking the ball out on the full, and there is absolutely no reward whatsoever for the skill of forcing a line dropout in the game. The grubber kicking, is seen as an evil. You don't want to risk the 7-tackle sets. I've known coaches over the years to tell their players, don't grub a kick into the in goal. I don't want to give away 20 metres and 7 tackles.
All the time.
And it's taken away one. And the building of pressure and the building of teams building pressure on the opposition was a skill and it was an art. And that's when the crowd's excited. Crowds get excited at both ends of the field. Listen to when the crowds are cheering the most. When one side is defending their line and the other side is attacking, or when they get to the other end. When the ball's just in the middle, what's the crowd doing? It's not doing much at all. All right, but the crowd gets excited by attacking football, and we've actually taken that a lot of that away by taking away the consequences for not being able to kick the ball 10 metres from a line dropout. All of a sudden, we want this aerial contest. I don't know why we wanted it. I don't know why we did that, but we did it. But when you marry that up with this ridiculous 7-tackle set rule, if you infringe in the in goal or grab a kick, is this making any sense to you? Makes too much sense, doesn't it?
You've been thinking about this all summer.
I've been thinking about it for 10 years.
You've turned
and I kept saying, why is everything a 7-tackle set?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. That's just what the referees did. Well, make them not do that. Oh, well, no, they're in charge. Well, no, they're not. That's why you need someone in charge of the rules. Not a committee, not 1,000 people giving their opinions, not 12 coaches sitting around a table or 6 coaches, selected coaches, sitting around a table, right? Because they just talk out of self-interest. They talk about what's best for their team. And if my coach was on that committee and he didn't know what was best for us, I'd be dirty too. That's just human nature. But it's not in the best interest of the game. We make rules for the game that have tremendous consequences that they don't relate to. And it should take a long time to change the rules. So I applaud the decision not to award 7 tackle sets for infringements in the in goal.
You've got one right, NRL.
But it should have gone further, right? There should be no 7 tackle sets from the 20-metre zone. They're not warranted, absolutely not warranted whatsoever. And the way the game is played these days with the high kicks into the corner and the rushing defence, they're not going to be kicking the ball dead. They won't give up 20 metres because now they don't have to. You look at where all the sets are starting now, the skill of the players to land that ball. You know, your Mitchell Moses and your Nathan Clearys and these players landing the ball right in that corner of the player there, and they're down and they're virtually tackling him without moving, contesting the ball. Right, they're getting down there and we've got obstructors and everything. But anyway...
the defence lines up and tries to smash
I don't think there's
them.
ever going to be a position now where teams will deliberately concede a 20-metre set. So we've got over that.
But if they do, who cares?
It won't last long. There's no need for a knee-jerk reaction to make a rule for it. There should be no 7 tackle sets from 20-metre taps. 20 metres is more than enough. 20 metres is more than enough advantage for any infringement that's gone there. But it shouldn't be that way. You know, catching the ball on the full in your in goal, that's a skill. You've gone up and you've braved it and you've got the ball. You want to maybe give him a 20-metre tap. But, 20-metre tap, I don't like them at all in any circumstance. I think that's an antiquated rule in our game.
Jeez, you haven't missed a beat today.
Now they want to give him an extra
back
tackle.
into it.
Now they want to give him an extra tackle.
Did you go away? Did you get a holiday?
Yeah.
Where'd you go?
I went to Hawaii for a week.
Oh, again?
Yeah. Sat there and taught about 7 tackle sets and replacement rules. And,
Spent the whole time on the phone.
yeah. No, they didn't ask my opinion. They won't be happy with my opinion.
They just got it. They
won't
got
be happy with my opinion. But I'm just saying, and I think I speak for a lot of fans. I think a lot of common sense fans and rugby league people would agree. I think, and we take the game too far away from the professional game to the semi-professional game, even from New South Wales Cup football downwards. All this stuff applies to NRL. It's so hard to do in lower grade football and in junior league football. These rules just don't translate. The same goes with the bunker and sort of different rules, interpretations we have around play the balls and 6 agains and everything. It doesn't relate to lower grade and junior football. Some of the tries we have allowed and disallowed in first grade are allowed in every other grade from 6 years of age through to New South Wales Cup and Queensland Cup. The game is different at the NRL level, sometimes I think for the wrong reasons. Anyway, that's my soapbox for the day. Which rule do you want to talk about now?
I think we've covered that off.
Do you think so?
You happy with that?
If you like.
Because I'd like to talk about
There
the
are a
player
lot of rule
movements.
changes. There are a lot of rule
Well,
changes.
there are a lot of rule changes. We might move on to the player movements. But we'll have a little break first. And thanks very much to Tab, who are back on board with us again for another year of 6 tackles with Gus for
How
2026.
would you feel sitting on the bench, all dressed up, ready to go, with your headgear on, and you've got strapped up, and you've got you might have got needled because
The shoulder pads.
Your shoulder,
Yeah.
everyone's ready to go. Your mouth guard ready to go.
Machine guards.
And what they do when you sit on the bench, every 10 minutes they get you up and make you run down in front of the crowd and do
The
a stretch
bike.
down in the corner. Then they get the tackle pad out, and you've got to punch the tackle pack, and then you've got to throw the ball around, and you go out and warm up before the game, which is a match in itself. The way they get out there and do that, they have a game before the game.
Yeah.
Anyway. So every 10 minutes you're getting up and you're running down
Here
the
we go, I'm
sideline,
on.
and every time the crowd cheers, he's coming on soon, he's coming on soon, he's coming on soon. And then in the end you say, no, we don't need you today. You're not going on. No. Who did this? Why do they do that? You've got to cover the positions with your 17 men. That's the game.
It was actually,
Safety hatches.
it's actually 18.
Now I can pick me 4 big forwards and just rotate them, and if I don't need me outside backs, I don't have to pick them. Me forwards will be good. They'll be able to defend for longer. They don't have to be as 80-minute players. Every NRL player should be an 80-minute player. The game would be very different then.
So, Tab are giving punters plenty to
Just
shout
wandering
about
along
this
now, aren't
NRL season. Download the Tab app.
We're not going to put this to air, are we?
This is our first episode of the year, baby. So we're actually... Tab, we're on, by the way.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.
So we're going to do 2 episodes because you are flying to Vegas. When are you going?
I'm going Saturday.
Excellent.
I don't think my throat will get through another episode today.
Really?
I'm going Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah, so the team's leaving on Thursday. I'm staying back Saturday to watch the junior rep games, and then I'll get on a plane Saturday night.
Very good.
Head off to Vegas. We've got some corporate things we've got to do next week. We've got some NRL obligations, obviously. The Bulldogs have put a couple of fan days on and a couple of corporate things across there. There are some meetings to be had, meeting some other people, some old friends from over in who are living in America at the moment. So plenty of catch-ups during the week, plenty to do.
Are you going to see the Billy Joel tribute concert again?
I might. I was a bit of a star at that last time.
Yeah.
Knew all the songs. I think I'm going to the Sphere to see the Eagles.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. That's a bucket list thing for me, the Sphere. It looks phenomenal. Yeah. The Eagles. Excellent. If anyone goes with Gus, we'd love a report on how he goes with his singing. We'll take a little break here and we'll come back and have a look at the all-important player movements. Tab is giving you something to shout about this NRL season. With Tab's NRL My Offers, get personalised offers on every game this round. Download the Tab app for the NRL. Tab, we're on.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
Six Tackles with Gus, episode 1 for 2026, thanks to our great friends at Tab. Well, undoubtedly, the biggest signing, well, it doesn't happen until next year, but it's the biggest news in the transfer world. Payne Haas to Souths. Wayne said, oh, well, the Troll told me to go and sign him, so I did.
Wow.
Except that's not a flex.
Yeah, that's a good get.
That's massive.
Good get.
And do you know what? It's one of those ones that...
And in the dark of night.
Yeah. No whispers at all about that. Did you hear anything about that? Any scuttlebutt?
No, it was a military-style operation. Everyone was kept... which...
What do you reckon they're paying him?
To be honest, it didn't surprise me that something like that was kept quiet. Otherwise, it would never have happened.
Yeah.
I don't know whether Brisbane Broncos were completely blindsided by it. It sounds like probably they were.
He seems like he's been restless for a while. He's had a bit going on.
To be honest, there has always been, in the background, there's always been inquiries about Payne Haas. There's always been a restlessness there. But Broncos were going through some troubled times at the time as well. You know, There were a number of players. But, he's won his premiership there now. For whatever reasons, he's decided he needs a change. People can speculate on that all they like. I don't listen to all those sort of rumours or what have you. But for South Sydney, who lost Keon Kalamatangi to the Dragons for 2027, it's a wonderful pickup. He's not cheap. I can't imagine he was cheap.
Wonder what they're paying him.
There is still, I guess, the suggestion that he's hedging his bets and could go to another, go somewhere else in 2028, that it might only be a 12-month thing. I don't know. But there was always a lot of speculation about this Rugby 360 thing, which I always thought was rubbish. I didn't think Rugby 360 was going to get off the ground, if at all, but certainly not within the time frame they were suggesting. I thought everyone was overreacting to that. But, yeah, there's kind of been behind the scenes some restlessness with him, enough to say that, you know, he's been offered around to clubs a number of times over the last few years, whether that was to bolster, the price for him or get his bargaining price up, I don't know. But
I can't imagine Payne Haas needs any bargaining power.
Well, you wouldn't think so. But anyway, that's the decision that he's made. And, of course, he's had his support of his family and the issues that they've been going through as well. So it was always considered that it would have to be, something drastic for him to leave that area, let alone the Brisbane Broncos. Having won the premiership, I guess he's had a change of heart. Whether or not he was seriously considering R360, I don't know. And maybe that's what opened his eyes a little bit to something else that was out there. And obviously his relationship with Wayne Bennett has been a key factor in securing him to South. Now, when was the Keon Kalamatangi deal done?
I'm going to say a month ago.
Yeah, so I can't imagine South would have been in a position money-wise to be considering Payne Haas whilst ever they were in the bidding or thought they were in the bidding for Keon Kalamatangi. I doubt they could have afforded to do twice, which means the Payne Haas thing must have only been an option in the past couple of weeks. Once Keon made his decision to sign with the Dragons,
there have been whispers of Kalamatangi to the Dragons for a while now.
Yeah,
so
because,
it was
because of
formalised
because
in
of the
last
November
month.
1 starting date and all that sort of thing. But
So
I think South Sydney would have been very optimistic in keeping him. They weren't able to do so. St George obviously made a big pitch and paid big dollars and got him down there. But South Sydney have, crikey, more than replaced him, haven't they? That's a coup. That's membership, that's sponsorship, that's recruitment, that's junior development. So much can change on the recruitment of one player. I remember in the very early stages, in my days at the Panthers, when we were building the academy and putting things together, I made a huge offer for Jonathan Thurston, which I thought could really change or accelerate the course of our club at that time. And we were very close to doing it, but it was kind of like one of those all-in type moments where this fella can accelerate and can change the whole perspective of our club. And I just feel like that's one of those moments with South Sydney that this was a deal probably they had to do. That's the type of stature with which he's held. That's the effect that he can have. I hope he now plays his career out there. I would love to see him stay in the game and do a Sam Burgess type role for South Sydney, or a Greg Inglis type role where he inspires the next generation of South Sydney players. And South Sydney is so important to our country. Well, every team's important, but South Sydney's such a history in our game. And it's a massive coup. It's a massive coup for that club. He's not there for 12 months. It hasn't solved some of the other roster issues that they've got, and it's going to make it more difficult for them to fill those positions.
Well, their main issue is...
And their roster's not getting any younger.
But they've got to keep everyone on the field. Like, they've had a diabolical run with injuries.
Yeah, they've got to get through with that. But, they still don't have... since losing Adam Reynolds, they really haven't gotten a first-string halfback. So, that's another thing. Payne Haas can only do so much on his own. But it is a huge coup, absolutely huge coup.
So this year they've picked up Jonah Glover from the Dragons.
He broke his jaw the other night, did he?
Oh, did he?
In the Charity Shield game.
Oh, I missed that.
First tackle.
Oops.
Well, it was suspected.
Oh, it was a broken jaw. I did see him get injured. I didn't realise it was a broken jaw.
Well, that's what it looked like, yeah. So I haven't seen the result of the x-rays yet, but didn't look good.
Bronson Garlick's back at Souths. They've picked up Adam Elliott on the quiet.
Yeah.
He's handy. But the big one's David Fafita.
They've gone around the edges and shopped smart. I think they've picked up some players on mediocre dollars that can do a job for them, and you need players like that. You need those tradesmen, journeyman-like players at the bottom end of your top 30, on good wages where you get good value out of them, and that allows you then to keep a Latrell Mitchell, to keep a Cody Walker, to go out and buy, a Jack Whiten, and now to go out and buy a Payne Haas. It's a major coup. Like you've only got to stand back and clap that, versely with the secrecy and the way it was done, and to get probably one of the biggest games in the game of rugby league.
Build the club around him.
It's massive. Well, that's why I hope it stays for some time. It's not just a sugar hit for 1 year. It's very, very important that whatever the contract is, that it stands the test of time.
All right, so let's run the rule over some other teams, starting from the bottom up from last year. We've already knocked over South because of the segue there with Payne Haas. Newcastle fans wouldn't be all that enthusiastic about what their team has offered in the trials so far.
Don't worry about trials.
Dylan Brown.
Trials are trials, mate. Don't worry about trials. Winks never won a trial. I don't think Chris Waller horses have ever won a trial. You don't try in trials. Don't worry about trials.
I think they were trying. I just don't think it was working.
Trial form's worth nothing, mate.
Right. Trey Mooney, good get. Harrison Graham, he goes all right from the Dolphins.
Again,
picked up a couple of peripheral players.
Yeah, they've got Peter O'Sullivan up now there, the recruitment guru, and he again has picked around the edges with what's available. It's pretty intense out there.
Sandon Smith.
Yeah, it's pretty intense out there for talent because, we've got Perth Bears coming in now, and there's the lure of Perth Bears. We've got P&G in a couple of years' time. We've had the Dolphins come in recent years. Clubs who don't or haven't in previous years spent a lot of money on development have got to recruit from the outside. It's why I think more and more clubs now are facing the fact that they've got to invest in development, and the junior rep programs are getting better and better. I think more and more teams, which is healthy for the game in the long run. But, it's really competitive out there to be buying NRL talent. It's also expensive, which is why you need to develop. But that's another story. I just harp on about that all the time. You need to be developing talent and bringing it through at the right price, because if you are just constantly recruiting talent, you've either got to have a really good eye and get them at really good value, but that only lasts a short term because once they perform, they're worth more money and it's hard to keep them. So,
yes.
I think they've picked around the edges pretty good. I think, there's always people looking for opportunity, but...
Ponga didn't play the trials either.
No, I'm not worried about Newcastle. They'll be all right. They'll be all right. Dylan Brown and Sandon Smith and Kalen Ponga, it's a pretty good side. Bradman Best, the big winger.
You took their best front rower. Gold Coast Titans. Luke Summerton, good toiler. Lachlan Ilias gets another chance at a new club. Curtis Moran from the Bulldogs, he's willing. Max Fine from the Dolphins are the players they've picked up.
And again,
a whole bunch of players have been released.
And that's to complement their list, which they've got some very high-paid players out there. So you need to be going out and buying those sort of players that are looking for opportunity. You know, and for some players, they need to be playing NRL to be earning money. They need to be playing NRL to keep getting contracted. And sometimes they can't get enough of it in the club that they're at. They've got players in front of them, so they look for opportunity elsewhere. And that's where clubs sometimes can pick up some really good bargains. And you know, it's been one of my habits over the last 20 years to be looking for those sort of players that are looking for opportunity, you know, to improve themselves, and you can pick them up for good dollars. And that then allows more scope in the top end of your salary cap to buy marquee players or to retain marquee players if you want to keep them and be able to match the dollars that might be available for them. The key is not to have your best players coming off contract if you can help it, but to also have a steady stream of young players coming through that are ready to debut for your club and have got plenty of tomorrows in them at the back end of your roster. That's how I see salary cap management. But the player movement you're seeing, a lot of it, other than the occasional marquee player, is players looking for opportunity and clubs taking the opportunity to pick up a cheaper player in a position to give them greater depth. And that's what they've done.
I know you don't care for trials too much, but obviously Josh Hannay is another big acquisition at the Gold Coast. Andrew John said to me at the weekend calling the All-Stars game, he's liked what he's seen from the Titans.
I'll tell you what you're seeing. I'll tell you what I look for in trials. All right, it's fitness and commitment. All right, fitness and commitment. All right, you see those two things.
Have you seen that from the Gold Coast?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, good.
I really did.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought they trialled well, and not just from your first grade players or your regular first grade players, but from the ones that are coming in. It also gets to show how good your academy program's going, and until they play at that level against those sort of men, the difference between first and reserve grade today is so huge that it's hard for young fellas to come in and debut in first grade in under-strength teams, right? You see that a little bit in trials because there's too many of them out there at the one time and it can go against them. You know, how long since we've seen a Panthers team like that destroyed? You know, a young Panthers team usually comes in and they're pretty competitive and they got beat by 60 the other night. The gap is widening immeasurably, and if you put them up there too young, they just can't compete. They can't physically compete, mentally or physically, with the first grade standard player. So I don't read anything into trials other than I look for fitness and energy and some sort of semblance of you know, commitment to principles in their football.
Okay.
And I saw that pretty much across the board with it. Even teams that were getting beaten, some of them getting beaten badly, I still saw process there. I still saw fitness, I saw strength, and I saw commitment. So once you get their top side on the field, completely different.
Okay. So in George Illawarra, Daniel Atkinson, good get. Josh Kerr's gone back home where he started. David Farley, the young centre from Penrith. Setu Tu from the Warriors, he got a run at the weekend. And Joseph O'Neill from the Dogs.
Yep, they picked around the edges again and done well, brought in those players.
New halfback.
Yep, a good kid. He's sort of been coming off the bench at Cronulla Sharks and he's had plenty of good players in front of him. So now he goes off to the Dragons to try and get a start and establish himself. And I thought he showed some really good signs in the trial against South Sydney the other night. I don't read anything into the scoreline or the performance there on that night. It's just a hit out. It's just to go out and, you know, get a sweat up and get yourself ready for the competition proper, and he'll be a lot better for the run. They lost Jack de Bellin, which I think is a big loss for them, but Josh Kerr comes in and can hopefully fill that void a little bit. And a couple of the younger players looked as though they've had good off seasons. You know, so the young fellas that have sort of been debuting in the last 12 months looked a lot more seasoned.
Yeah, they've got some excellent young forwards. Still got young Dylan Egan to come back as well, but the Stewarts and the Couchmans and these sorts of guys,
they'll be
relying on
fine.
them.
They'll be fine. They had a lot of games last year where they were in the games, so they just couldn't close them out.
Yeah.
They got beaten by narrow scores on a number of occasions. You know, and once you start to win those ones, it builds your confidence and builds your momentum. So Dragons aren't far away at all.
Tigers, Kai Pearce-Paul, good signing. Maverick Geyer. The other one that I reckon's a good pickup's Bunty Afoa.
Love Bunty.
Yeah.
Love Bunty.
He just plays at a million miles an hour, as Fatty would
Bunty.
say.
I love his name, Bunty.
Bunty.
Which mum called
Do you like
me
his
Bunty?
hair? Got that lovely
Lovely human being.
Volume,
And from what
that's
I
the word
understand, he's been their best trainer during the summer. He's been really good. Really good senior, experienced forward. You can never have too many of those, and I think he'll be good for them. Tigers last year, I tipped them to make the 8, and, I thought they played some really great football at times during the year. It was a bit of a learning curve for them during the course of the year. They had a bit of disruption during the middle part of the year. But for the large part, I thought it was a good season for them and a springboard into this year. I think Luai will be better for the experience there, and I think that, they're a good side. They've got some really good young talent coming through, and that big centre looked really good in the trials. Macassini or whatever his name is.
Oh, yeah, Hamasi Macassini. They've had huge raps on him.
Yeah, lovely kid. I think the Tigers are competitive, and they've shot well around the edges.
Mm-hmm. Surely North Queensland improve. Reid Marnie, as we know. Sonny Luke from Penrith has gone up there. Ethan King from the Roosters, Matt Lodge for a bit of extra forward depth.
Yeah, Marnie's a marquee signing, and the others, again, shopping around the edges of journeymen that have been in the system.
They've lost Reece Robson, though.
They're looking for. Well, they had to replace Reece Robson, so they've gone for Marnie and Sonny Luke, so they've got good coverage there.
I've always thought Sonny Luke could play.
He can. Yeah. Sonny had a lot of injuries. Sonny came through in the same team as Nathan Cleary, Jerome Luai, James Fisher-Harris, and all those fellas. I think he was actually man of the match in an under-20s grand final with all those players in it.
Yeah.
When they won a premiership at that age, but he had some injuries and he gave the game away for a couple of years. He's always been a great lower grade player.
If you remember when Coruscant was there.
They get typecast a little bit coming off the bench and being attacking players, but he's a good pickup. He can hold his end up for sure, Sonny Luke.
He sort of looked like a bit of a Coruscant clone there for a while. Like he was coming off the bench behind Coruscant.
Oh, he can play. He's he was a young halfback that converted to hooker. He was actually a halfback as a kid. But he's a good player. But again, they've shopped around the edges and done well. But they've got some superstar players there as well. I mean, their form in the trials has been really good from a perspective of just the cohesion that they've got, the plays that they're running, the confidence that they're playing with. They're going to be hard to beat.
Yeah, it's telling that he's played a... Well, not
it comes off
but he's played his 2 trials that we've seen. They've been a lot of their first grade players.
Well, what you've seen there is a reaction to last year.
Yeah,
last year was disappointing.
Yeah,
People have been saying the coach is under pressure or players are under pressure. I think you've seen a reaction in the way they've started this campaign. I don't read too much into the scorelines or the trials or the strength of the opposition that they played against, but it shows that they're fit, they're healthy. They've got some good combination going early in the season. They had to get ready early because they're headed off to Vegas next week to play against the Newcastle Knights. And they're the sort of side Cowboys that have got great strike power. I mean, Scott Drinkwater and Dearden and these players are really good players. Purdue, they're good players.
Last one before we wrap up and we'll do our second episode, Gus's throat permitting. Para. How good were they at the end of the last year? I'm excited by Para this year.
Yeah.
Jack de Belin, like you say. Jonah Pezzett, a 1-year deal. He's off to Brisbane.
Yep.
And Brian Kelly. But the way he brought that team on last year was just phenomenal.
Yeah,
Jason Riles.
They lose Zach Lomax, and the whole Zach Lomax thing has been very unfortunate for Zach and the game. But again, they've picked around the edges. They've made a strategic decision to go with Jonah Pezzett, even though they've only got him for 12 months, but to play with Mitchell Moses this year. Their improvement last year was incredible. I think we called round 1 last year where they were down 44 to 4 or something at half time, and their first few weeks were pretty much in the same vein, but their improvement during the back end of the season, I think they won their last game by 50.
Yeah, they were awesome.
Phenomenal, and they've started off well in the trials. I think, Parramatta, Jason Riles has done a wonderful job there. That's a team that looks fit, healthy, enthusiastic and connected. They look like they're really enjoying their football, and they play a nice brand of football. There's really good attack in them. Look at what they did on the weekend. Again, I don't read too much of that, but that's without your Mitchell Moseses and those sort of players as well. So, no, they're a good side. He's a very, very good young coach, and Parramatta is on the way up. They're a chance.
All right, so there's a look at the lower half of the ladder in terms of player movements for season 2026, and we'll have a look at the rest of the teams in our second season preview coming up soon. That's it for 6 Tackles with Gus, episode 1, 2026. Thanks to Tab and thanks to the locker room here at Olympic Park. I don't think I've been here before today.
Been here plenty of times.
How good is it?
Yeah, Laundy Hotels, one of the Laundy Hotels, sponsors of the Bulldogs, Arthur
Yes.
Laundy and his family, and of course they've moved into the media world now.
Yeah.
So, we've had quite a few functions here. We actually stay in camp pretty regular over here at the hotels here when we're playing at our home ground across the road. So,
You come and get a steak and a Parmigiano over here.
prawns. They come over and have nice prawns for some reason. But there's always a beautiful meal here at the locker room. And
Will you be doing breakfast on 2GB or one of the radio stations now the Laundy's own?
no,
own?
I think my radio...
Can you be lured back into the radio role,
I
Gus?
think my radio days are long gone.
That's not what I'm hearing.
Long gone.
A reminder to the Billy Slater podcast returns every Monday from next week, so you can listen to Billy on Monday talking about Origin eligibility, and you can
You'll learn
hear
more
from
from
us
Billy
later in
Slater
the
than
week.
you'll learn
Oh
here.
no, Billy won't be quite as opinionated. I wouldn't have thought. Talk to you soon.